When Michael threw out his pregnant wife on Lagos streets for his secretary because she was a poor orphan, he thought he'd won. 24 years later, their paths cross again in the most unexpected way. But will a mother's strength be enough to overcome years of betrayal and abandonment? Sit back and watch as we dive into this emotional story. Chinelo looked up from the baby clothes she was folding, a smile ready on her lips. But Michael's face was cold, distant in a way that made her stomach clench with more than pregnancy pains. "I want a divorce." The words hit her like a slap. The tiny socks she'd been holding fell to the floor. "Michael, what are you saying?" "I found someone else. Someone who can help my career, who understands the kind of life I'm building." His voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. "You need to leave. Tonight." Chinelo's world tilted. She pressed her hands to her belly, feeling their son kick as if sensing the danger. "Michael, please. I'm carrying your child. We promised each other. That child will be better off without the limitations your background would place on him." Michael turned away, unable to meet her eyes. "Cynthia, my secretary, she's educated, sophisticated. She can give me the kind of intelligent children who will make something of themselves." The cruelty of his words stole Chinelo's breath. She fell to her knees, clutching his trouser leg. "Please, Michael, for our baby's sake, I'll change, I'll learn. Pack your things, I want you gone in an hour." How did it come to this? Just 5 years ago, Michael had been a struggling junior banker who ate at Mama Kemi's small restaurant in Surulere, where Chinelo worked as a waitress. He had watched her serve customers with such kindness, had walked her home through dusty streets, had held her hands and promised they would build something beautiful together. "We're both starting from nothing," he had said on those evening walks, "but together we can rise above it all." Chinelo had believed him. She had believed in his dreams when he was just a small man with big ambitions. She had encouraged him through every promotion, celebrated every success, and now that he was a bank manager with a corner office in expensive suits, he was throwing her away like garbage. That night, Chinelo found herself on the streets of Lagos with nothing but a small suitcase and the clothes on her back. Her belly ached, and she felt their son moving restlessly, as if he too sensed their desperate situation. She was an orphan and had nowhere to go. She walked until her swollen feet could carry her no further, finally taking shelter in an abandoned building in Ogudu. The concrete floor was cold against her back as she cried until no more tears would come. But as dawn broke over Lagos, painting the sky in shades of hope, Chinelo placed both hands on her belly and made a promise. "I will not let you suffer for your father's choices," she whispered to her unborn son. "I will be strong enough for both of us." The next morning, despite her swollen feet and aching back, Chinelo began her search for work. Door after door slammed in her face when potential employers saw her condition. But as the sun began to set, she encountered Mama Aduni, an older woman with kind eyes and weathered hands, selling oranges and bananas from a wooden table outside Ogudu Market. "Child, you look ready to collapse," Mama Aduni said, studying Chinelo's exhausted face. "When last you eat?" Chinelo's pride warred with her desperation. I'm looking for work, Ma. I can sell anything, clean anything." "Sit down before you fall down," Mama Aduni commanded gently. She pressed a ripe banana into Chinelo's hands. "Eat this first, then we talk." As Chinelo devoured the fruit, Mama Aduni listened to her story with growing anger at Michael's cruelty and growing admiration for Chinelo's determination. "You can sell for me," the old woman decided. "Take this tray of fruits. Sell them in the office area near the post office. Whatever money you make after returning my capital, you keep." For the next 3 months, Chinelo hawked fruits with a determination that impressed even Lagos's hardened street vendors. Her belly grew larger, making the work harder, but she pressed on. Mama Aduni watched this young woman struggle with growing fondness. "Come and stay with me," she offered one evening, as Chinelo counted the day's meager earnings. "My room is small, but it's better than that building where you've been sleeping." Chinelo's eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "Why are you helping me, Ma?" Mama Aduni's weathered face softened. "Because 30 years ago, my husband and his family threw me out when I couldn't give them children. No one helped me then. But you remind me that kindness still exists in this world." The two women, separated by age but united by hardship, became family. On a rainy Tuesday night in September, Chinelo's labor pains began. With no money for a hospital, Mama Aduni became midwife, boiling water and tearing clean cloth as Chinelo gripped her hands and pushed their son into the world. "He's beautiful," Mama Aduni whispered, placing the crying baby on Chinelo's chest. "What will you call him?" "Emeka," Chinelo gasped, tears streaming down her face as she looked at her son's perfect features. "He who has done great things." "Because he will, Ma. This boy will do great things." Life with a newborn tested Chinelo's limits daily. She had to leave 6-week-old Emeka with Mama Aduni while she hawked fruits, rushing back every few hours to nurse him. When he was old enough to be carried, she strapped him to her back and continued working, his cheerful gurgles becoming the soundtrack to her hustle. But when Emeka turned 1, everything changed. He developed a high fever that wouldn't break, followed by violent convulsions that terrified both women. At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, the doctor's words hit Chinelo like a physical blow. "It's meningitis. He needs immediate treatment. Antibiotics, monitoring, possible surgery. The cost will be 150,000 naira." Chinelo had saved 75,000 naira for Emeka's future education. It wasn't enough. She fell to her knees in the hospital corridor, sobbing as Mama Aduni held her trembling shoulders. "Take my savings," the old woman said firmly. "All of it. That boy is my grandson too." Between them, they had just enough. Emeka survived, but the experience changed Chinelo forever. That night she vowed never again would she be helpless when her child needed her. As Emeka slowly recovered, Chinelo continued hawking fruit while taking on any work she could find. Washing clothes, sweeping the streets, and carrying heavy loads. Chinelo wanted to save enough money to start her own business. One scorching afternoon, while selling oranges near a building site in Victoria Island, she overheard workers complaining about the terrible food from local vendors. Heart pounding with nervous courage, Chinelo approached the site supervisor, a burly Yoruba man named Mr. Bamidal. "Sir, excuse me, what if I could provide hot, delicious meals for your workers at a fair price? I guarantee quality and good taste." Mr. Bamidal looked skeptical, but something in Chinelo's confident tone made him pause. You want to cook for 50 hungry men? Give me one chance, sir. If they don't love the food, you don't pay me." The next day, Chinelo arrived with pots of jollof rice, fried plantain, and grilled chicken that made the entire site smell like heaven. The workers devoured every grain of rice and begged to know when she'd return. Word spread like Harmattan fire. Within 2 months, Chinelo had contracts with 3 construction sites. She hired 2 other women and rented a small space to operate from. Finally, she could afford a proper room for herself and Emeka. Young Emeka watched his mother's transformation with pride and amazement. At age 5, he helped serve food after school, learning to count money and treat customers with respect. He saw how his mother gave free meals to street children and never turned away anyone who was hungry. "Mama, why do you feed people who can't pay?" he asked one evening as they walked home. "Because, my son, we were once hungry too. Success means lifting others up, not stepping on them to climb higher." Emeka never heard his mother speak badly of his father. When he asked about the man who had given him life, Chinelo would simply say, "Your daddy made different choices, but you, Emeka, you will make better ones." By age 10, Emeka was the brightest student in his class at the local primary school. By secondary school, he had earned a full scholarship to one of Lagos' best private schools. His teachers marveled at his focus, his kindness to classmates, and his determination to make his mother proud. Chinelo's business continued to grow. Her reputation for clean, delicious food spread throughout their neighborhood. She saved every naira she could, and by Emeka's final year in secondary school, she had bought a small plot in Ikeja and built a proper restaurant. The Golden Pot restaurant became known across Lagos for its authentic Nigerian cuisine and warm atmosphere. Mama Aduni, now in her late 60s, watched their success with tears of joy. Chinelo had moved her into their beautiful house and opened a fruit store in her name, but the old woman preferred to spend her days at the restaurant, telling stories to customers and spoiling Emeka like the grandmother he'd never had. But while their lives flourished, elsewhere in Lagos, Michael Okafor's world was crumbling. His marriage to Cynthia had been everything he'd dreamed. Lavish wedding, connections to powerful families, a lifestyle that impressed his colleagues. But Cynthia was not the innocent secretary she had appeared to be. She was calculating, ambitious, and when she caught the attention of Chief Adebayo, a wealthy oil executive who's 15 years older but worth 10 billion naira, she saw a much bigger prize than a mere bank manager. Cynthia realizes she needs to get rid of Michael completely, but she also wants to benefit from his downfall. Cynthia's plan was ruthless in its simplicity. She secretly gathered evidence of Michael's embezzlement, money he'd stolen to fund their expensive lifestyle, then secretly reported him to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission while simultaneously disappearing with the remainder of his stolen funds amid the chaos. Michael, blinded by lust and ego, never suspects the woman he thinks worships him is actually planning his destruction. The EFCC raid happened on a Monday morning. Michael was arrested in front of his entire staff, including the junior workers he had once humiliated. The evidence was overwhelming. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. In his small, hot cell in Kirikiri prison, Michael had nothing but time to think about his choices. He thought about Chinelo's gentle hands, her encouraging words, the way she used to wait up for him no matter how late he came home. He thought about the child he had never met, the child he had thrown away in his pursuit of an empty dream. Meanwhile, Emeka graduated from university with first-class honors in engineering. At 24, he landed a position with one of Nigeria's most prestigious consulting firms. Chinelo cried tears of joy at his graduation ceremony, remembering the nights she had studied with him by candlelight, helping with his homework while managing her growing business. "Mama, everything I am, I owe to you," Emeka said, placing his graduation certificate in her hands. "You never let me feel like I was missing anything, even though I was missing a father." Chinelo kissed his forehead, her heart full to bursting. "You were never missing anything important, my son. Love is what matters. Love and determination." When Michael was released from prison after serving his full sentence, he was 51 years old and looked 70. 8 years of regret had aged him terribly. With no money, no home, and a criminal record that made employment impossible, he found himself sleeping on the streets of Lagos Island, begging for change from strangers who looked through him as if he were invisible. One sweltering Thursday afternoon, Emeka was leaving his office in Victoria Island when he noticed an elderly beggar sitting against a building wall. Something about the man's posture touched his heart. The beggar looked defeated in a way that reminded Emeka of his own struggles growing up. "Sir," Emeka called out, approaching the man. "Are you hungry?" The beggar looked up with eyes that had once held ambition, but now held only shame. "Please, anything you can spare." "Come with me," Emeka said gently. "Let me buy you a proper meal." He led the man to Golden Pot Restaurant, not recognizing the figure hunched beside him as the father who had abandoned him before birth. As they entered the bustling restaurant, Chinelo looked up from the cash register and froze. Time seemed to stop as she stared at the broken man beside her successful son. 25 years fell away, and she was once again the pregnant girl begging for mercy on a cold Lagos night. "Michael," she whispered. Emeka's head snapped toward his mother, then back to the beggar. His eyes widened with recognition and rage. "You? You're my father?" Michael's voice cracked as he realized who the young man was. "Chinelo? Is this my son?" "Don't call me your son." Emeka's voice shook with years of suppressed anger. "You threw us away. You left my mother pregnant and alone on the streets. Please, I never want to see you again." Emeka stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Michael collapsed in shame and Chinelo staring after her son with tears in her eyes. Later that evening, Chinelo found Michael still sitting outside her restaurant. She brought him a plate of food and sat beside him on the concrete steps. "I'm sorry," Michael whispered, unable to look at her. "I'm so sorry, Chinelo. I threw away everything real for things that meant nothing. I see what you've built, what you've raised. I don't deserve forgiveness." Chinelo was quiet for a long moment, watching Lagos traffic stream past them. "I forgave you years ago, Michael. Not for your sake, but for mine. Holding on to anger would have poisoned everything good in my life. And Emeka? Emeka is hurt. He's carried the weight of your abandonment his whole life, even though I tried to shield him from it. Give him time." That night, Chinelo and Mama Aduni sat Emeka down in their comfortable living room. "My son," Chinelo said gently, Anger is a heavy burden to carry. I know you're hurt, but holding on to that hurt will only make you bitter. He doesn't deserve forgiveness, Mama. Look what he did to you. And look what we built despite what he did, Mama Aduni added, her voice filled with wisdom. You are successful. Your mother is successful. We are a family. His mistakes don't have the power to hurt us anymore unless we let them. It took Amika 3 days of wrestling with his emotions before he went looking for Michael. He found him in the same spot where they'd first met, looking even more defeated than before. I've decided to forgive you, Amika said without preamble. Not because you deserve it, but because I refuse to let your choices continue to affect my life. Michael looked up with desperate hope. Does that mean? It means I forgive you. But I'm 24 years old. I've passed the stage where I needed a father. You can't undo 24 years of absence with an apology. Amika pulled out a business card and handed it to Michael. This is a rehabilitation center that helps former inmates reintegrate into society. If you truly want to change your life, start there. Earn your redemption through your actions, not your words. 5 years later, the Golden Pot restaurant was packed for its usual Sunday family dinner. Amika, now a successful consultant with his own firm, sat at the large table with his wife Adais and their 2 young children. Chinelo, now a respected businesswoman with 3 restaurants across Lagos, served plates piled high with jollof rice and pepper soup. Mama Aduni, in her 80s but still sharp, told stories that made the children giggle. Michael was not at the table. He had successfully completed the rehabilitation program and found work as a security guard at a small company. He lived quietly, sending occasional letters to Amika that were polite but distant. The relationship they would never have was a wound that had healed over but left a scar. But as Chinelo looked around her table at the family she had built through love, determination, and forgiveness, she knew that some stories don't end with perfect reconciliation. Sometimes the happy ending is simply the love that survives, the dreams that come true despite the obstacles, and the knowledge that you've raised a son who understands that true strength comes not from abandoning others, but from lifting them up. Mama, Amika said, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. Thank you for showing me that a person's worth isn't measured by where they come from, but by how they choose to love. Chinelo smiled, her heart full of the kind of wealth that can never be stolen or lost. Outside, Lagos bustled with its eternal energy, but inside the Golden Pot restaurant, surrounded by the family she had chosen and the family who had chosen her, she knew she had everything that truly mattered. The strength of a mother's heart, she had learned, could overcome any betrayal, survive any hardship, and build any dream. And that was the greatest lesson she could give her son, not just the ability to forgive, but the power to love without limits, to dream without fear, and to build something beautiful from nothing but determination and hope.